Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first India Forum. Welcome to the first India Forum on China. On the dais, joining Her Excellency the Governor of Goa, Srimati Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung, is Ambassador Shyam Saran, former Foreign Secretary, Government of India, and the Prime Minister's Special Envoy, and a member of the Governing Council of the Institute of Chinese Studies. Ambassador Ashok Khan, Director Institute of Chinese Studies, Professor Varun Sani, Vice Chancellor, Goa University, and Mr. Peter Remel, President Representative of the Konrad-Adenauer Foundation to India. We shall now begin the inaugural session of the first India Forum on China with the national anthem. I invite the students of the Goa University to come to the stage.
भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जल वितरंगा तब शुभ नामे जागे तब शुभ आशीष मांगे गाए तब जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 जय
May I now invite Ambassador Ashok Khan, Director Institute of Chinese Studies, Delhi, to please make remarks. Her Excellency the Governor of Goa, Srimati Konrad-Adenauer, Ambassador Shyam Saran, former Foreign Secretary of India and member Governing Council, Institute of Chinese Studies, Ambassador Shivshankar Menon, former National Security Advisor of India and Chairman Advisory Board, Institute of Chinese Studies, Professor Varun Sani, Vice Chancellor Goa University, Mr. Peter Remel, Resident Representative Konrad-Adenauer Foundation, India, Dr. Jebin Jacob, Convener of First India Forum on China, senior participants, young scholars present here, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to welcome all of you to the inaugural session of First India Forum in China, which is being co-hosted in the beautiful city of Goa by the Institute of Chinese Studies and Konrad-Adenauer Foundation with the support of Goa University. We are particularly honored to have with us Her Excellency the Governor of Goa, Srimati Konrad-Adenauer. Thank you, Excellency, for gracing the occasion, agreeing to deliver inaugural remarks. Your presence and participation adds great value to our initiative. I would also like to acknowledge with thanks the presence of the Chairman of our Advisory Board, Ambassador Shivshankar Menon, Governing Council member, Ambassador Shyam Saran, who will be delivering the keynote address, and other senior colleagues from the Institute of Chinese Studies, Mr. Peter Remel and his team at the Konrad-Adenauer Foundation, our principal partners for this event, Professor Varun Sani and his colleagues from Goa University, who have been most helpful in organizing this forum, and all distinguished participants, many of whom have travelled from abroad. We have just concluded the 10th edition of All India Conference of China Studies, which was held here in partnership with Goa University and Naval Goa College, with the special theme of China in the Maritime Domain. It was an extremely productive event with the participation of China's scholars from all over the country. Many of them, in fact, are with us this evening, since Honorable Governor is also Chancellor of Goa University. I would like to convey our appreciation to her for support we received, full cooperation that we received from Goa University for organizing our 10th annual conference. Building on the utility of the AICCS, felt it would be useful to develop an annual platform with the participation of sinologists from India and abroad to study trends and developments in China in an Indian setting and proceeding from India's interests and imperatives. The idea is to encourage an objective, well-informed academic and public discourse on China, the country which will influence the trajectory of the re-emergence of India perhaps more than any other country. For us, it's essential to understand the transformation and rise of China, which has possibly been the most important geopolitical development, not only in our region but globally for the past 25 years. Today, we are launching the first India Forum on China at Goa, but we do hope that it will become an annual event. This inaugural edition of the IFC seeks to explore and decipher China's increasingly explicit and ambitious strategies of seeking regional and global leadership, evident most recently at the 19th National Congress of the Communist Party of China, convened in Beijing in October, and the Belt and Road Forum held in Beijing in May. Indeed, one of the most important outcomes of the party conference was the articulation of China's great power ambition. In his work report, China's preeminent leader, Xi Jinping, talked about China becoming a global leader of composite national strength and international influence and moving closer to the center stage by the mid-century. A Xinhua commentary of 24th October puts it more candidly. By 2050, and I quote here, by 2050, 2 centuries after Opium Wars, which plunged the Middle Kingdom into a period of hurt and shame, China is set to regain its might and reascend to the top of the world, unquote. An overarching theme of the party congress was the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation and restoration of China's centrality on the global stage. In his speech, President Xi spoke of China as a strong country or great power as many as 30 times, dropping the earlier quietness about the country's great power ambitions. Our objective at this forum will be to understand the nature and implications of China's leadership quest, evaluate its strategic narratives, and assess limitations and constraints faced by China in the pursuit of its regional and global goals. This will involve, among other things, an overview of strategic underpinnings of China's foreign policy, its mega Belt and Road Initiative, its ambitious Made in China 2025 strategy, and its policy of protection of overseas interests as a strategic priority. The broad themes include China's foreign policy in terms of its concepts, ambitions, and practices, how it operates at the regional level, and of course, its military and expanding international presence of the Chinese armed forces. To conduct this dialogue, we have brought together renowned scholars and practitioners from India and several foreign countries. I welcome all of them. I have no doubt that we'll have most productive discussions this evening and tomorrow. Thank you.
I now invite Mr. Peter Renale, President representative to India, Konrad-Adenauer Foundation, and our principal partner for this event.
Your Excellency, Honorable Governor of Goa, Your Excellency, Ambassador Saran, Your Excellency, Ambassador Ashokanta, dear Professor Varun Sangi, lieber Herr Wieck, friends, dear ladies and gentlemen. During this year's G20 summit in Hamburg, some journalists claim that China and Germany step up as US retires from world leadership. Chancellor Merkel has rejected the idea that she be the leader of the West as grotesque, and Germany is reluctant to take stake, claim to global leadership also because of its history. Meanwhile, China, under Xi Jinping, is quite more ambitious, as he stressed recently in his speech at the 19th Communist Party Congress that it is China's goal to become, and I'd like to repeat the quote already used, Ambassador Kanta, a global leader in terms of composite national strength and international influence. in the middle of 21st century. But how will China shape its quest for global and regional leadership? It's an honor and privilege alike to extend a warm and hearty welcome to you, all who have congregated from different directions, even different continents. The first India Forum in China. It's my pleasure to have the opportunity to participate in this excellent event and share the knowledge and experience of our experts. Participants from India, Australia, China, Germany, Israel, Japan, Singapore, Taiwan, and the United States will discuss in the coming days different dimensions of China's aspiration for leadership. In the beginning, I want to thank Ambassador Ashokanta, Director of the Institute of Chinese Studies, and Professor Varunzani, Vice Chancellor of the Goa University, for their partnership in organizing this highly intriguing as well as topical conference. It is really a pleasure for us to conduct a conference with the ICS for the first time, and it's my hope that we can strengthen our cooperation further in the future. Ambassador Kanta is well known to CAS, has participated in a joint conference organized by CAS, IPSD, and IGA about changing Asia in September. CAS and Goa University also have a history of cooperation, though a different subject during Professor Peter D'Souza's leadership of the political department of the Goa University. It is only a logical step to have the continuation under the Vice Chancellorship of Professor who is also well known to CAS and predecessors. CAS is honored to work together with such distinguished experts and such excellent research institutes. Similarly, I would like to thank all the chairs and speakers and all who have contributed and those who will do so tomorrow. The Konrad-Adenauer Foundation, which I represent, is a German political foundation which has been active in India since 1968, making almost 50 years. The foundation runs more than 20 offices within the Indo-Pacific region today. Recognizing the growing importance of the region, CAS opened its latest office in Australia to expand its existing research on the Indo-Pacific issues and further strengthen Germany's understanding of the region. Today we are active in almost every Asian country and thus are able to observe and pay attention to the transition the region is undergoing in our daily work. Noting this development and getting to know the consequences thereof are both very important for the world, Europe, and also especially for Germany, because Germany has a big stake in the geostrategic situation of this region. The rapid changes taking place in Asia, especially in China and India, are altering the global balance of power, not only for Germany, but also for many other countries. This development brings uncertainty as well as opportunities, also risks. The topicality and importance of the question how China will shape its quest to leadership comes to our mind when we consider the news of the last few months. The China-India border standoff on the Doha platform is just one sign that China is becoming more assertive. But also in the world of economy, the implications of China's rise brings risks and opportunities. While especially South European countries, like economies, are benefiting from Chinese investments, there is also the big risk of a sellout of Europe's high-tech assets, particularly in manufacturing and technology. The proposal by European Commission Chief Jean-Claude Juncker to limit the ability of foreign state-owned enterprises to buy up European firms in the energy infrastructure and the defense sector is another proof how China's quest for leadership can go hand in hand with the risk for the development of countries. The creation of a debt trap by China has become quite apparent as evinced by the case of Sri Lanka, but it managed to draw the island nation within China's strategic orbit. These are only a few examples, but I'm sure our experts will shed light on these issues and having much more deeper insight in the next 2 days. On this note, once again, My thanks to our partners, to the co-organizers of this event, to speakers and guests. It's my great pleasure to warmly welcome all of you to this seminar. I'm looking forward to fruitful discussions and constructive results.
Thank you, Mr. Nale, for your remarks and for the partnership with Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung. May I now invite Ambassador Sean Sutton from the Foreign Secretary and then the Governing Council of the Institute of Chinese Studies to deliver the keynote address.
Your Excellency Srimati Konrad-Adenauer, Governor of Goa, and also Chancellor of Goa University, Professor Vanusani, Vice Chancellor of Goa University, Ashok Kanta, Director of the Institute for Chinese Studies and close colleague, and also my long-standing colleague Shivshankar Menon, the former National Security Advisor of India, and Mr. Peter Rivera, the resident of the Konrad-Adenauer Foundation, members of the ICS family, distinguished scholars, ladies and gents. I am very honored to have been invited to deliver the keynote speech this evening, and I would particularly like to express my gratitude to Her Excellency, the Governor of Goa, for gracing us. Thank you. There is little doubt that the world is undergoing multiple transitions, and these transitions are, of course, generating very complex and unfamiliar challenges for countries both big and small. The most important transitions in terms of their geopolitical impact are the following. One, there is the continuing and irresistible trend towards globalization, which is driven by technological change, and this is accelerating. Societies and polities may try to retard and even reverse globalization because of concern over loss of national control, economic inequalities, and these inequalities are, of course, laid at the door of globalization, and the perceived destabilizing impact of the expanding use of, for example, social media. The election of Trump in the United States and Brexit are examples of this reaction against globalization. But this is harking back to a world which no longer exists. However, since globalization is technology driven and people across the world are not likely to give up, for example, their use of smartphones or the internet, this transition, I believe, is here to stay and will intensify. So this is one transition. The second transition that I want to speak about is the shift in the locus of economic and increasingly military power from the transatlantic to the Trans-Pacific. The emergence of China as a major power with significant and still expanding economic and security capabilities is both a cause and a manifestation of this shift. But the Trans-Pacific is now home also to other substantial existing as well as emerging. This cluster includes countries like India, Japan, Australia, South Korea, the US itself, which continues to deploy very formidable military power in the region. There are also middle powers on the way to becoming substantial powers in their own right. And this category may include countries like, say, Indonesia or Vietnam. Now, this geopolitical shift is likely to persist and will impact on the regional order in Asia. This regional order, to my mind, is likely to be multipolar precisely because there are several major powers whose interests must be reconciled. A multipolar Asian order, therefore, will become a guarantee of a multipolar globe. An important and intensifying transition, which is the third transition I want to speak about, relates to the rising salience of cross-cutting issues, which transcend national borders, such as global warming, international terrorism, proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, global pandemics, energy, water, and food security, which are all interlinked together. This is just to name a few. And what has happened is that the line dividing the domestic from the external is becoming increasingly. In dealing with such challenges, responses need to be local as well as global. And they need to be collaborative. Coercive approaches cannot work even if there are powerful countries seeking to impose their will on others. The emerging global order will need to be aligned with this transition in order to deal with these challenges. It is, to my mind, China's handling of these seminal challenges which will determine the prospects of its quest for global leadership. Does China seek global leadership? Ambassador Ashok referred to some quote from the speech of President Xi Jinping, and it was also drawn attention. So there is no doubt that China does seek global leadership. This aspiration came out very loud and clear at the recently concluded 19th Congress of the Chinese Communist Party. And if one looks at, say, the report of Xi Jinping's report to the Congress, he extolled the achievements made by China through the application of what he called, quote, socialism with Chinese characteristics. And then he went on. It means that the path, the theory, and the system, and the culture of socialism with Chinese characteristics have kept developing, blazing a new trail for other developing countries to achieve modernization. It offers a new option for other countries and nations who want to speed up their development while preserving their independence. And it offers Chinese wisdom and a Chinese approach to solving problems facing them. Now, there is no doubt that China's development experience holds lessons for other countries, developed as well as developing. What Xi Jinping is stating here goes beyond such sharing. It claims that the whole package of system, theory, and culture of socialism, as interpreted by China, has an applicability across nations. This is different from the familiar Chinese formulation, which we have been used to earlier, that each country has the right to determine its own social system and its path. This has been repeated in Xi's speech, but contradicts the more expansive assertion that the rest of the world should adopt the Chinese model, including its ideological underpinnings. How does China expect that other countries should adopt or even be capable of adopting? What are characteristics which are important? For that matter, are other countries likely to be attracted to the Chinese model of political authoritarianism and state-directed capitalism? Would the one-party system of China and the overriding leadership of the ruling party be replicable in other countries? I do not think that Chinese exceptionalism, as expressed in the term, quote, socialism with Chinese characteristics, unquote, can at the same time be regarded as a model with universal application. No claim to global leadership can be based on this. In fact, a more globalized world, made of very diverse countries with their own political, social, and cultural particularities, needs leadership which displays a cosmopolitan spirit, an ability to engage with different cultures and accommodate different ways of thinking rather than insist on the superiority of the At the end of the Cold War, the West insisted that its formula of free markets and liberal democracy represented the only valid template for development. Within less than 25 years, this universal model came crashing down ignominiously. There is a lesson to be learned. It may be more credibly argued by China that the sheer weight of its economic and increasingly security profile entitles it to play a more influential role in regional and global affairs. One may go even further and acknowledge that China is also making very impressive strides in strategic technologies such as aerospace, artificial intelligence, advanced materials, quantum computing, and renewable energy. These are powerful levers in aspiring to a global leadership. But the question is, what objectives are sought to be achieved through these instruments? Of course, all major powers are guilty of using their interests, their power to advance their interests, whether these interests are political, economic, or security. So China cannot be held to a different standard. However, the exercise of power exclusively in pursuit of national objectives does not entitle a country to equal position. A country must stand for something more than itself. For example, is China ready to contribute to the strengthening of institutions of global governance? And here the record is somewhat mixed. It has shown its readiness to participate in the shaping of multilateral institutions such as the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank or the BRICS Development Bank with other partner countries, including India. This is a positive contribution to the global cause, but it has also tried to get global endorsement of its Belt and Road Initiative, which is exclusively Chinese design and to be executed mainly by Chinese companies with Chinese financing. Its naval forces cooperated closely with the navies of other powers to eliminate the threat of piracy in the Western Indian Ocean region. However, in the South China Sea, it has unilaterally asserted its expansive territorial claims, threatening the security of other states. China also has legitimate interest in ensuring the security of sea lines of communication, traversing the Indian Ocean and the Western Pacific. A large proportion of its overseas trade and much of its energy supplies traverse this ocean space. But this is equally true of other countries who share this ocean space as well, or you use it to carry out mutually beneficial. The issue here is whether China will seek its security through the unilateral assertion of its power, as has been the case so far, or would it be willing to use its power and influence to construct a multilateral security architecture that offers mutual reassurance to all stakeholders, including China. China has emerged as a major source of capital and technology for other developing countries, helping them to develop much needed infrastructure and industry. This is a positive contribution. At the same time, in several countries, Chinese capital has been used mainly in extractive industries, providing raw materials to China's economy, and it is Chinese labor teams which have executed such projects rather than locally recruited labor. This is most evident in Africa and also closer home in Myanmar. There is something of a backlash in Africa to such Chinese practices. So, as I said, the Chinese record is rather mixed, and its external behavior pattern has not yet crystallized. How its major partners react to its action will also play a major role in its own calculations. I argue that structurally the world is moving towards a multipolar, because the world is now made up of a cluster of major powers, and not only in Asia, but in other parts of the world as well. Europe, Latin America, even Africa. We see the emergence of Germany, for example, in Europe. In Latin America, you have a country like Brazil, which is certainly one of the very important regional powers. In Africa, you There are, of course, more powerful countries and less powerful, but it would be fair to say that we are in the midst of an unprecedented diffusion of political and economic power. Even military power is more diffused, and this is most apparent in the emergence of a world of multiple nuclear armed states, 10 altogether if we count North Korea in. In addition to this diffusion of power, we also have the nature of contemporary global challenges which require collaborative response. These cannot be delivered by a hegemonic order based on coercive authority of a single ascendant power or an ascendant group of powers, such as what we had in the past, the G7 of the European and the Western powers. Multipolarity with reliance on multilateral processes is the only way in which such challenges can be tackled. China was one of the strong advocates of a multipolar world order. And in fact, Xi Jinping reiterated China's belief that the world was indeed moving towards a multipolar order. However, in reality, recent Chinese policies have sought to project a Chinese centrality both in Asia and in the world, based on a very carefully crafted historical narrative of prolonged and uncontested Chinese economic and cultural dominance in Asia, and it's being the nodal point of ancient land and sea routes radiating outwards from China, collectively known as Silk. The Belt and Road Initiative is presented as a revival of these connectivity arteries in a modern sense, but in the bargain, reinforcing the notion of Chinese centrality. Both these aspects of China's historical narrative, much of it based on myth or selective readings of history, then fold into the Chinese notion of harmony, which is based on the Confucian notion of a hierarchical order with everyone knowing his place and status in the pecking order. Therefore, Chinese conceptions of peace and order become integrally linked to the maintenance of a hierarchical system in which Chinese dominance and leadership are actually seen as an inequity. Resistance to or rejection of such notions of self-entitled preeminence are actually seen as an impertinence. Therefore, the rhetoric of multipolarity sits at odds with the actual conduct of Chinese foreign policies, which aim at inheriting US dominance in the region as a kind of a natural succession. This is the strategic opportunity that Xi Jinping may have been hinting at in his speech today. If this reading is correct, then there is little doubt that just as China may be driven to seek an unquestioned ascendancy in Asia and eventually in the world, it will confront resistance from those major powers which do not accept the self-entitled hegemonic role which China may aspire. And there is already a growing crystallization of a countervailing coalition which will seek to deny China its ambitions, even as it keeps the door open to Chinese participation in a multipolar regional and global. So the recently revived quadrilateral among India, Japan, Australia and the US is one such response. And so is the currency of the term Indo-Pacific, which acknowledges that India has interests in the Western Pacific and an expanding security profile. Despite being a one-party system, China has achieved spectacular economic success over the past 3 decades, and this must be acknowledged. China has also displayed a certain adaptability and resilience in adjusting to a changing domestic and international environment. Therefore, it is quite capable of trimming its sails as the winds of change blow around. In any event, China's expanding economic and military capabilities are a reality and confront our region and the world with a challenge. China constitutes an economic opportunity which countries are eager to take advantage of. However, we sometimes neglect that our countries are also, at the same time, an economic opportunity for China. There is real interdependence at work. Chinese prosperity is linked to the globalization of its economy. However, it is China which uses economic levers to gain political ends. It has done so, for example, stopping the supply of rare earths to Japan a couple of years ago. More recently, it has punished South Korea for allowing the US to deploy the THAAD anti-missile system. There is rarely a comparable willingness of China's trading partners to turn the interdependence around and impose costs on China. For any countervailing strategy to succeed, it is necessary for those practicing it to also demonstrate their willingness to impose economic costs on China if it undermines it. The Chinese perception, quite justifiably, is that such retaliations are happening. It is also important for India to take the China challenge seriously and use it as a powerful spur to efforts to expand its own economic security and technology. I remain convinced that if there is any country which has the prospect of not only catching up with China, but overtaking it, it is only India. India is a civilizational state like China, with a strong sense of its place in the world. It is as populous as China is, but with a much better young age cohort than China. It has areas of technological excellence which could be scaled up to deliver significant growth. While China is investing heavily in industries of the future, it is still locked into a fossil fuel-based manufacturing growth pattern, which will be difficult to deconstruct in a short time. Much of India's infrastructure remains to be built, and it has the opportunity to embark on a different strategy of growth than China, more aligned with the emerging technology. Xi Jinping has thrown an ideological jab, denigrating liberal democracies as a failed system and presented the Chinese model as a successful template for the future. Thanks to the global economic and financial crisis, there is also a crisis of faith in democracy in both the US and Europe, and I would say even another country. But I think India is a living example of democracy delivering economic success even while upholding the fundamental rights of its citizens. It is therefore a credible alternative to the Chinese model and a factor contributing to the revival of faith in liberal democracy. The Chinese challenge should galvanize India into a much more focused and coherent development strategy and reinforce its inherent strengths as a diverse, democratic, and a cosmopolitan. I thank you for your attention, and I very much look forward to a very productive debate on some of the issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Shamsaran, for those remarks, which were simultaneously both an analysis of China as well as roadmap for India. And now, may I invite Professor Varun Sani, teacher to many of the students, an exemplar to many of the aspiring academics in this room, and Vice Chancellor Goa University.
Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung, Honorable Governor of Goa, Honorable Chancellor of Goa University, Ambassador Shamsaran, Ambassador Shiv Shankar Menon, Ambassador Ashok Tanta, Ambassador Nalin Suri, Mr. Peter Rimeles, distinguished scholars and delegates from overseas and from other parts of India, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Goa. A wonderful part of God's good earth with its red soil and its green vegetation and the lovely blues of its oceans and its rivers and its ponds and its skies. A part of India that has a well-established reputation for fun and frolic. But my university has, in the 33 years of its existence, tried to suggest that behind the veneer of fun and frolic, very serious work is done here. And I'm delighted to hear that there is a possibility that the first India Forum on China could be envisaged as an annual event if the Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung, if the Institute of Chinese Studies decides that this is an event that should have a permanent home, may I propose to you that you could not find a better permanent home. That's something on the annual calendar that sinologists and China watchers of other stripes from India and overseas would come to. And if you were to do so, I can assure you that you would find in Goa University a very willing partner. It's really, in some ways, interesting. I've been able to sporadically participate in the 10th All India Conference on China Studies as well. Of course, I don't sort of get a chance to do what I'm trained to do, which is be a professor of international politics these days. So it's very nice to have a conference like this come to town. One thing's pretty clear, that China is no longer a country that's biding its time. Xi Jinping's China clearly feels that its time has come. Whether it's the Belt Road Initiative, what has emerged from the 19th Party Congress, it's quite clear that this is a country that has decided that it now can signal to the rest of the world something that was always tacit and obvious as has been for a considerable period of time, that it is a state that now seeks to acquire system-shaping capabilities across a really a wide spectrum of capabilities. And here I think the whole centrality of China, the sheer geography of it, becomes really important, because China is the one country that actually abuts every single of the regions of Asia, whether we're thinking about Southeast Asia, South Asia, Central Asia, Inner Asia, East Asia, of course. China is a part of it. And so the rise of China, I've suggested in some of my writings, is converting a continent into a region. Is converting what used to be really a landmass into a region. If you understand a region as being a zone of security interdependence, then it's the rise of China that is converting this entire landmass and the waters around it into a single region. So that today, as a security analyst based in South Asia, I no longer can afford to ignore what's happening on the Korean Peninsula. Because what's happening on the Korean Peninsula, by impacting on China, will in turn have a direct impact upon the part of Asia that I happen to live in. And that's, I think, a very, very fundamental change. But I'd also suggest that in the title that we are proposing to disinter over the next today and the remains of today and tomorrow, which is China's quest for global and regional leadership. I just request all of us to consider whether we need to distinguish between power and leadership. That China is a global power, sure. The exercise of power is a control operation. Power is about relative capabilities. But I'll suggest to you, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that leadership is something else. Leadership is not a control operation. Leadership is about the generation of consent. And I think the jury is firmly out, it's going to be out for a pretty long time, about the leadership of China, either on continental scales or indeed on global scales. And I really would suggest that that could be something that probably is going to be explored, but if not, needs to be explored. But the real reason I'm here is not to tell you about China, because you know more about China than I do. I'm not a sinologist. It's in fact to introduce our chief guest, the Honorable Governor of Goa, Dr. Mridula Sinha. Before coming to Goa, to govern Goa, public life was already very considerable. She was for many years chairperson of the Central Social Welfare Board of the Government of India. She has been for many years a member of the National Executive of her political party, the Bharatiya Janata Party, the BJP, Vice President of the All India BJP, President of the Women's Wing of the BJP, the Mahila Morcha. When asked if she's a feminist, she says that she's a familist. Namely, she believes that the fundamental challenge, contemporary challenge now in social terms, is reinvigorating the family as the basic building block of society. And that in some ways is the core challenge. She's trained as a psychologist. She has a bachelor's and a master's degree in psychology and a bachelor's of education degree as well. Once asked, and she has of course many honorary doctorates, but when asked once about whether she has a doctorate, she just gently told the inquirer that no, she didn't have a PhD degree, but 21 scholars had been awarded PhD degrees for theses written on her literary output. So I think it's a meta PhD, if you will. She is the author of 46 books in Hindi, which span some of the best-known contemporary novels. She explores, in particular, important figures in Indian culture, in Indian mythology, women characters in particular, but imbues with them a particular modern sensibility through her understanding of the deep psychology that these characters. So they're really, for those who are Hindi readers, wonderful, wonderful novels. Her works have been translated into many languages, including English. She writes TV and film scripts, stories, essays, and is a regular columnist in some of the major Hindi newspapers and periodicals. She really embodies a particular style of maternal leadership that I think has been really wonderful for us at the university. A very, very benevolent form of constantly exhorting us to do better than we think we can do. And for that, I think collectively as the university, we are always very grateful. I'm deeply obliged that she accepted our invitation to be here, and look forward, of course, very much to her address to all of us. Thank you very much. Jai Hind, Jai Goa.
Thank you, Professor Sani, for that very warm introduction. May I now invite Her Excellency, the Governor of Goa, Srimati Inaugural.
Mr. Ashok Kant, Director Institute of Chinese Studies, Mr. Peter Remley, Resident Representative to India, and ex-Ambassador Shyam Sharan, who has given a keynote address, Professor Barun Sahni, Vice Chancellor of Goa University, Sri Shiv Shankar Menon, and Dr. J.P. Jack, and all the delegates have come from different parts of India and foreign countries also. As first citizen of Goa, I welcome you all here. And I am very happy to see that the delegates are in three generations. I always say that संग चले जब तीन पीढ़ियाँ चढ़े विकास की सभी सीढ़ियाँ. And in this August gathering, the three generations of members are here present. First India Forum on China. The subject is Inspiring China's Quest for Global and Regional Leadership. We all have heard the four eminent people on dais, and the keynote address is very exhaustive for this subject. I am also agreed with Mr. Sahni that quest for leadership and power is different. So I think that I am not going to give you a vast lecture or give you some new points about this subject. And I am always called only for blessings. So I can give you blessings for your efforts. And I am first citizen of Goa. And Goa is known for the international and national conferences. And again I will welcome you. It gives me immense pleasure to be speaking at the inaugural edition of the India Forum on China, organized by Goa University, dedicated to the theme of Inspiring China's Quest for Global and Regional Leadership. And I understand this is a first IFC that will bring a wide range of scholars and diplomatic practitioners, largely national and also global, to a common platform to reflect, brainstorm and deliberate on varied themes and issues concerning the ironic rise of China. It is aspiration for becoming regional and global power and its implications in the regional and global space. Before deciphering China's quest for regional leadership, we need to understand the concept of leadership in the context of today's world order. No doubt, a world leader must have robust military and economic capabilities, yet it is not a sufficient prerequisite. A world leader must enjoy legitimacy of its action by other nations. Its actions and its influence should be credible and in consonance with the international rules. It must respect global governance structures which have evolved in order to counter the global challenges such as terrorism, climate change, nuclear proliferation and proliferation of WMD. A world leader must have a spirit of internationalism and should lead the effort of world in dealing with the scourge of hunger, malnutrition, disease and poverty. It must respect other countries' sovereignty and other nations' collaborative approach for their growth and prosperity. A world leader must come out of the vortex of narrow competitive nationalism and should consider entire world as a family. It must strive for the betterment of the world as whole. In this context, quest for dominance is contradictory to quest for leadership. Aspiring for leadership to dominance is an oxymoron. Leadership can never be acquired through big brotherly attitude. If we truly want to decipher China's quest for global and regional leadership, it is important to understand its civilization, its attitude, and its way of thinking, which has formed over centuries of years and which has been less influenced by outside world. The Chinese have always believed in hierarchical system. Its quest for preeminence and dominance in the neighborhood is its historical legacy. With recent asymmetric increase in the economic and military might or power, it wants to enjoy the position of preeminence which it believes that it enjoyed for most of the history or in the past. Today, the contemporary world order is different from what it was in the past. With globalization, economies have become interconnected, countries have become interdependent for their growth and prosperity. Much of the China's prosperity growth can be linked to globalization of its economy. In such a scenario, China's quest for regional or global preeminence through principle of hierarchy runs counter to interdependence of the countries which is defining today's world order. Various instances of Chinese unilateral assertion of its dominance in Asia Pacific has brought before the world that this country has very scant regard for international law and rules. In such a scenario, its unilateral muscle flexing is being registered by a group of countries such as India, Japan, Indonesia, Australia, where power, be it economic or military, has diffused horizontally. In a multipolar world, China's quest for dominance in the region, which is a perspective derived from past, runs in contradiction to the prevailing reality. Asia has now emerged as a fulcrum of power in the world. Center of gravity has now shifted from transatlantic to Asia Pacific. Though US still has the most formidable presence in the region, its profile has diminished and that of China has increased. China is asserting unilateral power against countries of the region, and US seems to be a bit reluctant to confront Chinese ascendancy in the region. However, other countries of the region which have also grown in capabilities are resisting the move and making countervailing alliance against the rising China. China's footprint in Central Asia and other strategic regions has also increased with an emphasis on infrastructure development, investment in energy, resources and trade. China's initiative of OBOR can be seen in this perspective. The manner in which OBOR is being sought to be pursued by China in flagrant disregard to sovereign rights of other countries leaves genuine doubt in its intention. China-Pakistan economic corridor, which runs through sovereign territory of India, is an example. The OBOR initiative of China has also brought Russia in conflict with China, which is deeply worried about China's inroads in its near neighborhood. China's quest for dominance rather than aspiration for leadership in the today's multipolar world through its unilateral actions have brought it in conflict with almost all countervailing powers of the world. In this scenario, India holds the promise of being a regional and world leader with its civilizational attributes of cosmopolitanism. India is a multicultural society. It has embraced diversity and plurality. Yet there is a sense of oneness. In an interconnected world, its civilization spirit of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam gives it a strength to deal with challenges of multipolar and globalized world. India's track record in adherence of international rules is impeccable. Its collaborative approach with other nations and a spirit of internationalism going beyond the concept of narrow competitive nationalism paves the way for it being a world leader in times to come. Hopefully, the first IFC with its theme on Chinese quest for regional and global leadership in a strategic context shall contribute seminally to a productive understanding of China and its aspiration for being global power. I wish the conclave all success.
Thank you, Madam Governor, for your remarks. With your blessings and Professor Sani's invitation, I believe Directors CAS and ICS will have plenty to think about the next forum on China. This brings us to the end of the inaugural session. I will invite the students from Goa University for the national anthem.
अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय